All right. Trump unloads on the media, but the context is everything. Let's check it out. Welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. In case you couldn't tell, the president has been furious with the media this week. A couple instances in particular have the establishment press howling. And to be fair, these are not great moments for the president, but as always with Trump, the context does matter. The president caters endlessly to the media, and you know that, like none other in the history of this country. Often reporters do get disrespectful toward him. They start barking out rude questions, hoping to go viral, hoping for a reaction like Trump gave twice in recent days. We're going to start with the big one that you've been seeing all over the place the last couple of days, the quiet piggy moment. Trump flying home to Mar-a-Lago. He's on the jet on Friday, jumps into the cabin to give the media some attention, a standard courtesy that past presidents almost never extended. Immediately, Bloomberg reporter Catherine Lucy asked Trump what Jeffrey Epstein meant when he emailed Michael Wolff saying, of course, Trump knew about the girls. He asked Ghislaine to stop, asking about that one email and a batch of emails that came out last week that we've fully debunked at this point. Now, Trump, who sees this as another never-ending media-driven phony scandal of which he's been through so many, gives Lucy an expanded answer, politely gives her an expanded answer that ends with reminding her about Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, Reid Hoffman, and then he tries to change the subject, as the next reporter, standing right next to Catherine Lucy, then asks about Venezuela and Maduro, another very big topic for the president. When that happens, Catherine Lucy then interrupts that reporter quite rudely, demanding more Epstein questions, and that's when Trump loses his patience, and here's how it all went down.
Sir, is there something incriminating in the file, Venezuela, sir? Venezuela.
Not the best moment, but as usual, there's no camera on the reporters in these moments to show just how obnoxious they're being, because he puts up with a lot, and he doesn't get like this as often as maybe most people would. Regardless, the context at least shows you why he lost his temper. You needed to know all of that in the run-up to understand why he just said, quiet, piggy, and he's being made to be the biggest jerk in the world, right? The next moment happened yesterday with ABC's correspondent in the Oval Office as Trump took questions with the Saudi Crown Prince. Trump is attempting to do something right now that nobody in history has been able to do, and it would be magnificent if it were to be accomplished. And that is to force the Muslims and the Jews to get along by using commerce. The Abraham Accords are pure geopolitical brilliance, brought to you by the president, his son-in-law Jared Kushner, and others that were involved in the first term. The final piece of this deal, which would be astounding to accomplish, are the Saudis, the largest Arab economy. You tether them to Israel, you have something very special in the Middle East. Trump has been endlessly courting the Saudis, taking fire by those who are furious, and rightly so, about 9/11, and also those who are furious about the murdered journalist Jamal Khashoggi, which was much less of a tragedy. Trump ignoring that heat, though, trying to deliver an incredible alliance of peace that will change the world. Trump is not some Saudi stooge or Middle Eastern stooge. He's just a businessman trying to make the ultimate deal, a deal that could literally change the world, a deal that has never been able to be done. These two religions have been fighting for millennia. And the last thing he needed was hostility toward the Crown Prince in the Oval yesterday as he tries to lure him toward the West and away from China and Russia, as well as other radical Islamic countries that have not evolved as far as the Saudis have. But hostility is exactly what the president and MBS, Mohammed bin Salman, got from ABC's Mary Bruce, right there in the blue, who insulted the Crown Prince right to his face. And after Trump fought that one off, moments later, Mary Bruce fired off again with a shot at Trump over his handling of course, the Epstein files. And that's when Trump, and we weren't too surprised to see it, that's when he lost his patience.
Mr. President, why wait for Congress to release the Epstein files? Why not just do it now?
You know, it's not the question that I'm on, it's your attitude. I think you are a terrible reporter. It's the way you ask these questions. You're a terrible person and a terrible reporter. And you're not after the radical left because you're a radical left network. But I think the way you ask a question with the anger and the meanness is terrible. You ought to go back and learn how to be a reporter. No more questions from you.
Another ugly moment, right? But again, the context. And remember, this is ABC, which spends its entire day, even in midday, even at night, just trashing the President of the United States, even though it is a federally regulated broadcast network, which is so wrong, by the way. And it's something nobody ever talks about, but that is so wrong. In a two-party country, to have a network like ABC is so unethical and so wrong. Remember the media under Joe Biden? Softballs all day long from the big three, big, happy, smiling press secretary, because it was, very pleasant in the room. Almost all other secondary and newspaper media as well. Very, very, very cordial, very nice. Fox and Newsmax would ask tough questions, but always do it with respect. Those days are gone again. The media had its 4-year Biden vacation, and they are back now to ruthless activist journalism, which isn't journalism, by the way. It's political activism. Trump gives the media too much access, is the point of all this. He gives them way too much access. He spoils them rotten, like no president ever has. There is no better job than White House reporter under Donald Trump. You have so much material, and these people live off of that. Content, material, sound bites. That's what makes their lives possible. Trump makes these reporters stars. So many of them he's created who've hated him the whole time. And he's changed their lives for the better. They make millions off of him. But with enough time, of course, you see they become entitled. And you see this behavior because they hate him. To their core, they hate him, because everybody that gets churned out of journalism school in this country is a rabid, liberal, globalist communist. ABC's Good Morning America turned into a therapy session for reporter Mary Bruce today. Take a listen to this.
I don't have to tell you, these are extremely challenging times, and thank you for your reporting and your willingness to ask these types of questions. It must be surreal for you, Mary.
It is a little surreal, and Robin, thank you for that, but it is also just our job, and we're going to continue to do that.
Thank you for that, Mary.
And you did it well, Mary.
Yeah, it's very surreal. You know what's surreal is essentially every single broadcast channel in this country standing in vocal opposition to the President of the United States and in solidarity with his opposition. That's surreal. If you were Trump and you had been through Russiagate in your first term, and you had watched the entire media and establishment Washington marginalize the greatest accomplishment of your life by crediting it to Russia and Vladimir Putin and calling you a Manchurian candidate for years, how would you react when another round of nonsense fired up at the beginning of your second term? And the media just starts insinuating pedophilia. Because why not, right? While ignoring the fact that the last administration would have had all the proof of said pedophilia at their fingertips, but somehow didn't release or leak any of it and just let Trump walk right back into the White House and win the last election. Because that makes a lot of sense. Trump's got to hear this nonsense nonstop on TV all day, because all he does when he's not working is watch TV. Then gets screamed questions about it by rude reporters. And when he gets pissed off and lashes out, which it's only a matter of time before anybody that's got some kind of backbone is going to lash out, they all play the victim and pretend that they're just honest reporters doing their jobs.
Every time he gets asked about Jeffrey Epstein, he loses his mind.
That is disgusting.
There's no excuse for that, right? No excuse for calling anybody piggy.
Obviously, that was wildly inappropriate, despicable.
This is an administration of trolls.
Terry Moran there, who left ABC and then immediately became a left-wing activist and proved, once again, as I always say, proved exactly why you were fired from ABC. Because you're not a journalist, Terry. You are a left-wing activist. The people so furious over Trump's temper are the reason that he gets so heated. They treat his political opposition with kid gloves while attacking him like a rabid dog. And the most ironic thing about all of this, despite having the media fully in their corner, we see Democrats lash out constantly at the media for simply asking fair questions and doing so politely.
Quit it. Stop it. This is the kind of journalism we don't need.
No, I'm just
You're
asking
divisive.
Why the hell would I take a test? Before you got in this program, did you take a test where you're taking cocaine or not? Are you a junkie?
What do you say?
What a stupid son of a bitch.
Shut up.
Look, Pat, look, here's the deal.
Look fat. Look fat, here's the deal. That was just a guy at a town hall. Fat. Nice name. Imagine how these people would react if they endured Trump treatment for a matter of a week. How would Joe Biden react if he got asked 20 times in 1 week about showering with his daughter until an inappropriate age, which she alleged in her own diary that nobody has ever refuted? They're going to ask Trump about all this Epstein stuff nonstop. They never asked that question. Isn't that weird? How would Nancy Pelosi react if she was pummeled with questions every single day about her very obvious insider trading scheme with her finance husband? Can you imagine Nancy? She'd rip somebody's throat out if she got that question. Imagine the reactions. Kari Lake with us tonight. Good to have you on. They're getting really riled up about Piggy and about Mary Bruce in the Oval Office. The context, though, matters, doesn't it?
It sure does. I mean, President Trump is like the guy at home yelling at his TV set when he hears these ridiculous reporters. They're not even reporters. They're propagandists. They're lie spreaders. There's not enough disdain that you can muster up for the members of the fake news that have lied to us nonstop for years, dividing our country, trying to tear down this president. But I thought what was interesting was something that I've been saying for a long time. It's not the stories they're telling, it's the stories they're leaving out. And the media threw a fit in Trump's first administration when he wanted to expand the number of reporters coming in to make room for more of the independent-minded reporters. And the fake news media went nuts because they know that if they can control the questions that are being asked, they control the narrative. If the only questions being asked are about Epstein and about whatever they're pushing out, then that is what everyone is covering. Now we have an opportunity with President Trump and the second administration bringing all these new reporters in who are actually asking questions that the American people want asked. And we're getting a much wider variety of stories. I agree with President Trump what he said. I didn't find it harsh enough. He could have used even more harsh words for these absolutely objectionable human beings who've done a terrible job and have divided our country.
And people at home don't, like I said, you never see the other side of it when he lashes out. You never see the obnoxious reporter screaming at you, interrupting everybody else to try and get an insulting question. And you don't know what it's like to deal with that press corps day in and day out, giving them all this access. And then all they want to do is humiliate and mock you and insult you and ask you questions that are negative toward what you're trying to do. I mean, that is taxing on somebody.
On topics from decades ago. I mean, on topics from, they didn't want to talk about the $1 trillion investment, the peace deals that are being worked out in the Middle East, the incredible job that President Trump has done to bring our safety to our streets, a strong economy, a border that's secure, bringing back manufacturing and business. It's disgusting. And I can't wait to see each and every one of them eventually fired because they will continue to push away viewers until nobody's watching.
I want to show a funny little video from Jake Tapper, who's furious over Trump calling for NBC to fire the late night host Seth Meyers, whose show is basically a knockoff of Kimmel or Colbert. It's nonstop attacking Trump on everything you can think of. It's a very bad show, very late on NBC. Take a listen to this from Tapper.
And demanded that NBC fire Seth Meyers immediately. Okay, I guess we're all used to this kind of hypersensitive ranting from the president at this point. But what was interesting and notable is that Trump's handpicked, very supportive Federal Communications Commission, or FCC chairman, Brendan Carr, screenshot the post on Truth Social and then posted it on Twitter himself without comment.
So imagine if every single federally broadcasted network spent all day acting as opposition to a Democrat president that Jake Tapper had voted for, in unison condemning and mocking every single thing that president did, the guy that Tapper voted for. Imagine they did that to Joe Biden. Can you fathom how fast Jake Tapper would be demanding the FCC take action if every single channel, ABC, CBS, NBC, all were trying to destroy the Democrat Party all day long?
Yeah. Yeah, that's not why when we hand out these broadcasting licenses, it's not to push your political agenda. It's to actually inform the public and do a good job of it. And they're not doing that.
Yeah.
But one thing I noticed there, you just showed Terry Moran. I call him Terry Moron. Yeah. And then you showed Jake Tapper. He's looking pretty tapped out. And then we see Keith Olbermann and we see Katie Couric. And it's like their TDS.
Yeah.
Has just drained them. They look like they're just a shell of their former selves. They got to work on being happier, supporting this country, supporting this president for turning our country around and making it great again.
And they make it so easy by showing us their cards after they leave these big jobs. You realize, wow, they really are propagandists, because their next move is to sit in their living room and talk all day long about how liberal they are, which is amazing. Kari Lake, that's right. Thanks so much. Good to see you.
All right. Thank you.
All right, a bill securing the release of the Epstein files has swept through Congress. It didn't take long at all, and it now awaits the president's signature. His aides say the president will sign it. Attorney General Pam Bondi announcing today that the DOJ will release the files within 30 days, all the files in a searchable and savable format. The media says that this is a major defeat for the president, though. That's how they're spinning it. A Washington humiliation leaves Trump more politically exposed on Epstein than ever before. So he says he's going to sign it. Pam Bondi jumping out ahead of his signature, saying they're going to release it. And this is now a political humiliation for the president. Still pushing, of course, this theory that a massive scandal awaits Trump in these files, which, as we know, were already scoured by Biden's very hyper-political DOJ. For 4 years, they had the files. Take a listen to this.
This investigation he just launched, which quite frankly is bogus. The person that appeared more times in the files from the last batch was actually Donald Trump, more than any of the other names that he's mentioned.
More than Bill Clinton or Larry Summers, or any of them?
By far. His name in this last batch was in there over 1,600 times in the 23,000 pages. And so he wants to investigate anyone. It should be himself, his own administration.
Yeah, it was in there 1,600 times in that last batch, but the one that they released to really nail the president, they had to do a redaction on just to sell it to the press. A redaction that ended up debunking the entire crux of that email. The chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Jim Jordan, joins us now to talk about this. Congressman, good to have you back on. Trump is mentioned by Epstein, but we do notice there's no messages between Trump and Epstein at all. So what you have is Epstein talking about Trump a lot, seemingly obsessed with him.
Yeah, and that last point you made, Rob, is, I think, really important. I talked about this yesterday. The one email that the Democrats released a week ago was an email between Mr. Epstein and Ms. Maxwell. And in there, they redact the name of the victim, something we all agree on. Except in this case, no court had ordered that redaction. No agency had ordered that redaction. The estate didn't redact it. And the victim had already went public, and she had said that President Trump did nothing wrong. So think about what the Democrats did in an effort to twist and distort something so that it's harmful to the president. They redact the name of someone who's already went public and exonerated the president multiple times. And yet this bill, I think, potentially will allow people the court said should be kept private. Now they will be exposed. So the Democrats got it just backwards. But look, we got this. We supported it. Let's get this out there. Everyone's for making sure that the bad guys are held accountable. But remember what the Democrats are up to. This is just another way to go after the president. The one constant they've had for 10 years, go after Trump. And this is just one more example of that.
Well, you know, we remember from a soundbite from Thomas Massie that we played last night from a hearing back in September. He indicated that there's about 20 names in these files. We only really know about 4 of them right now. Do you believe that when this is all released over the course of maybe the next 30 days, hopefully sooner, that we will get the identities of the other 15, 16 men that are in these files?
Yeah. I have no idea. I don't know how that they know what the number is. I mean, I don't know, what Congressman Massey, the House, he's determined that's the universe of people who are bad. I have no idea. But what I do know is the legislation passed. The president said, all right, make it all out there. And we all know if there was something bad about the president, you don't think the Garland Justice Department The Ray FBI, the Biden administration wouldn't have. I mean, come on. So we know the president didn't do anything wrong, and he's simply saying, "All right, get it out there. Let's get on with doing what we told the American people we were going to do. So let's get focused on helping American families."
Yeah, I want to get to a couple more things with you. We've got Stacey Plaskett, the loudmouth delegate from the U.S. Virgin Islands, has a big Epstein problem, texting with him advice on how to embarrass Trump in the questioning of Michael Cohen. Republicans have let her off the hook on a censure, which I couldn't believe. Here she is defending herself on CNN.
I believe that Jeffrey Epstein had information, and I was going to get information to get at the truth.
At the time, he was a known sex offender, and it had been detailed all the sexual abuse.
There are a lot of people who have done a lot of crimes, and as a prosecutor, you get information from people where you can.
Just say it what it really is, honey. That you would talk. She would speak to the devil incarnate if she could use it for a political victory. That's the real truth, isn't it?
Well, I mean, this is just consistent with where they've been for 10 years. They spied on his campaign. Then it was Mueller, impeachment 1, impeachment 2, lawfare, Alvin Bragg, Fonnie Willis, Letitia James, on and on it goes, all the way to Arctic Frost, Jack Smith, all the way to a 43-day shutdown because they thought it would hurt Trump. And now we have a Democrat who's willing to text with this guy in a hearing with Michael Cohen that was designed to go after the president. So it's all about going after Trump.
Yeah.
We all know that.
Congressman, this is an interesting one. James Comey, the former FBI director, in court today, charges of lying under oath and obstruction. The evidence against Comey is very clear. We've played it on this show. He made 2 conflicting statements under oath on camera in front of Congress in regards to leaking information. He said it one way, and then he said the exact conflicting thing the other way. Both times he was under oath. That's very obvious evidence, but the judge is weighing throwing this out. As Comey's lawyers say, it's a malicious prosecution. So apparently you can have overt evidence of a crime, but you can still call that malicious prosecution. The magistrate judge threatening to remove the lead prosecutor, Lindsay Halligan, throw it out altogether, claiming that she mishandled evidence presented to grand jurors and alleging the grand jury was tainted beyond repair. This guy seems very partisan. What do you make of this?
Yeah, I mean, he may in fact be. I don't know the judge here, but what I do know is the 18 U.S.C. 1001 is clear. You cannot, you cannot lie. You cannot say things that are not true to the United States Congress. You're under oath. You have an obligation to give the truth, because if we don't get the truth from people, how do we do our constitutional duty to conduct oversight? And so it looks like to me James Comey violated that. I know John Brennan did, because I was in the hearing when the deposition when John Brennan did. So we've referred him to the Justice Department because we know what he told us was not accurate. So yeah, you're not allowed to do that. We'll see what happens.
It's amazing. It is amazing. Congressman Jim Jordan, we appreciate it. Thanks.
You bet. Thank you.
Hearing today on the rising cost of health care, Democrats are furious as Republicans try to chart a new path on this issue. Senator Roger Marshall is also a doctor, and he's up next.
Kevin Sorbo here, and I have an important message to share. The government needs more money, your money. If you owe the IRS back taxes, they can garnish your wages and levy your bank accounts. They can even seize your retirement or take your home. Don't let the IRS target you. Call the professionals at Tax Network USA. Their tax lawyers and enrolled agents are experts in powerful programs that may even help you eliminate your tax debt.
Call for a free consultation or visit tnusa.com.
Donate your car to today's veterans and help support Tunnel the Towers. The process is quick and simple, and the proceeds from your generous car donation will go to support the good work that T2T is doing throughout our community. Any car is accepted, running or not, and we will pick it up for free. Your car donation will help Tunnel the Towers to help our dedicated veterans and their families. So call 888-980-VETS or donate your car online at today'sveterans.org. Your car donation really does make a difference.
Growing up, kids face a lot of stress. Girls on the Run turns that stress into strength. Through fun activities, girls build confidence and learn life skills like managing emotions and resolving conflict. Doing this work for 2 decades has shown me that youth mental health is complex. Every girl is unique, and there isn't one simple fix. Let's come together to empower girls, support parents, and strengthen families.
Republicans really don't like Obamacare.
The negligence of people in Washington
that are now discovering that our healthcare system is broken.
I think our healthcare system is broken. I think it's badly broken. And if the Republicans want to get serious about lowering costs and taking on corporate greed, count me in.
Senate Finance Committee with a hearing on the rising cost of health care today. Democrats losing it, blaming Trump and Republicans for their Obamacare-induced health care disaster. They don't want to talk about why health care costs are skyrocketing. They just want Republicans to throw a tremendous amount of your money at this problem as usual. Everything's on fire, nothing works, just dump money on it. This is their answer to everything. That's why inflation is so high. That's why you have to pay so much in taxes. Trump trying to change the system, saying the only health care he's going to approve is going to be sending money directly back to the people, nothing going to more subsidies for the big, fat, rich insurance companies. Here's how Republicans sounded today.
But here's the sad reality of Obamacare. The faulty design has dramatically increased premiums.
These spikes were predictable, they were warned about, and they're the direct consequence of the law that Democrats wrote and passed 15 years ago.
From 2020 to 25, how it just takes off, the premiums take off. Well, why? We started adding in these enhanced Biden subsidies as well, and the insurance companies jacked up their premiums to go along with that.
Senator Roger Marshall joins us now. You just heard from him. You know, the funniest thing about the Democrats is that they're so angry at health insurance companies. We've seen that. And did anybody give more money to those companies than Barack Obama, their hero? I mean, he is like a god. At a healthcare insurance company, there's probably a picture of his face right when you walk in the door because he got so wealthy from that guy. But let's talk about the problem here and how we're going to fix it. We've got a very sick country. We've got a very overweight country. I can see why it's so expensive to keep us healthy.
Yeah, so Rob, the great news is the Democrats are finally admitting that Obamacare is an abstract failure. They're admitting that the premiums have more than doubled, and a family of four with a $15,000 deductible that's making $80,000 a year is not access to health care. So the good news is maybe they're ready to fix it, but 15 years, Obamacare has been the law of the land. They own this. This is an opportunity for Republicans to fix it. And jumping to solutions, there's two basic principles that we want to use. Number one is we want to make patients consumers again. So let's take that $150 billion we're giving to insurance companies, let's give it to patients and let them decide how they want to spend those dollars. You want to spend it on your optometrist, your dentist, on eyeglasses, on physical therapy, you get to decide. Yeah. And the second piece of this is our price tags bill, that we would force every hospital, surgery center, imaging center, lab to show you the price before you choose where to spend that money. We think those two things alone will drive down the cost of premiums and the true cost of health care.
How much, when they decided to do the no pre-existing conditions, you can't be denied for pre-existing conditions, how much do you think that drove up the general cost of health care? Those are the reasons why it got so expensive, because insurance companies are forced to take people if they're extraordinarily sick. We all pay for that. Healthy people, healthy families that take care of themselves, take care of the kids, all have to pay that price.
Yeah, Rob, I would just talk about the overregulation in general. When this bill was rolled out, I remember sitting in the doctor's lounge and people saying, number one, this bill was written by the insurance companies because they're getting direct stipends. And the other issue was we saw this overregulation, that we knew that we'd be taking nurses off the floor and turning them into data entry people. That small doctors' offices, small hospitals couldn't survive this. So this is but one rule that they created that led to monopolies. Overregulation leads to consolidation of industries, and that's driving prices up. We need to take care of, I want everyone to have meaningful access to health care. Yeah. If they have pre-existing conditions, then let's set up some type of a reinsurance program to help those folks out as well. And that, I know, will drive the cost of health premiums down 15%.
Mark Wayne Mullin said that the plan, you think you're going to get something together by the end of the year. Do you think that's realistic?
Look, we're going to have a bill ready for the second week in December. The Democrats want their bill to extend the Biden-era COVID subsidies, that extra subsidy. We need a side-by-side bill. It won't be perfect. It'll have the things I just mentioned. Taking that $150 billion that we're giving insurance companies, give part of that to patients, our price tags bill as well, maybe a couple other pieces. I think the next real deadline is January the 30th. and that's when the funding for the government ends. So
Right.
maybe by then we'll have a bipartisan solution that actually is going to put some teeth into the problem.
Okay, it is a problem. It's such a difficult problem. That's why it's been such a difficult answer to come up with. Senator, thanks so much for taking the time. Good to see you.
You bet.
Here's the White House may have a bold deal to end the war in Ukraine. We're going to analyze that next.
I switched.
I switched. I switched.
I switched to Newsmax.
Newsmax. Newsmax.
Have you made the switch? You bet I did. My whole family switched. Millions are switching to Newsmax. You should too.
Protect your family. Buy LifeVac now.
Thank you, Dad.
That was us over 10 years ago.
Now, LifeVac is responsible for saving over 4,000 lives from choking.
In the time it takes you to pick up the phone and call, another life could be saved.
The LifeVac saved my life in 1 to 2 seconds.
Protecting families has always been our mission. I'm sure you love your family like I love my daughter. Do us all a favor and get your own LifeVac now.
Go to lifevac.net or call 877-LifeVac. Order now.
Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin, President and CEO of Swiss America. Do you know which investment has outperformed almost every other asset class since the beginning of last year? And that Goldman Sachs research is now forecasting to reach further heights. That's right, it's gold. Central banks around the world continue to buy gold at record levels due to economic turmoil, foreign conflicts, and a weakening U.S. economy plagued by debt. If you're concerned how to protect yourself as our financial system weakens, our team at Swiss America has a solution. For over 40 years, we've helped people just like you purchase precious metals for home delivery and for your IRAs. Don't miss out before this next big price jump. Call or text Swiss America at the number on your screen to receive your free portfolio review and a copy of The Timeless Truth About Gold and Silver. Let us show you how easy it is to safeguard your money. Call or text Swiss America today.
Ransomware scares me.
Cyberman to the rescue. PCmatic blocks the ransomware that hijacks your computer and your data, then demands a ransom.
Hackers are terrifying.
Hackers are always spying on your computer. PCmatic's VPN stops hacking.
My computer is slow.
PCmatic makes your computer faster. PCmatic is made in America and protects homes, businesses, and governments.
Thank you, Cyberman. Go to PCmatic.com.
Not again. Your cold is coming! Your cold is coming!
Thanks, Revere.
We really need to keep Zycam in the house.
Only if you want to shorten your cold. When you feel a cold coming, shorten it with Zycam.
A peace plan for Gaza. For the plan to advance, Hamas must disarm. Instead,
tonight, terrifying images emerging from Gaza. Videos show Hamas-linked gunmen carrying out a public execution as they return to the streets.
Hamas on a rampage, executing Palestinians, bloody crackdown, spreading terror. For freedom, not terror, Hamas must go.
What do you get the man who has everything for the holidays? You get him a Bullseye Pro, the smarter, faster, hands-free way to fill it up with air. Bullseye Pro is equipped with a rechargeable power plant and smart pressure sensor. It's like the power of an air compressor in the palm of your hand. Go online at getbullseyepro.com to get yours for just $79.99 and get free shipping. And we'll give you a 50% discount on a second one. Plus, it's also available at Walmart and Amazon.
Peace, peace, peace. John Lennon. Imagine us people.
All right, Maduro singing John Lennon, begging for peace, desperate to hold on to power as he destroys his country and the lives of tens of millions of people with communism. Secretary Rubio announcing the State Department intends to designate Cartel de las Solas as a foreign terrorist organization. That's the one Maduro runs that controls the country. The president confirmed recently that talks with Maduro are currently taking place. New York Times reporting that he suggested to give the United States a stake in Venezuela's vast mineral wealth in exchange for allowing him to stay in power. The president said no way to that. Sources also say Maduro is offering to step down in 2 to 3 years, as if anybody's buying that. A non-starter for the White House, that one as well. They want this communist criminal cartel leader gone. The president has signed off on CIA plans for covert measures inside Venezuela, operations that could be meant to prepare for a battlefield for further action. And with that, we go to Rebeccah Heinrichs, who's a Hudson Institute Senior Fellow, Director of the Keystone Defense Initiative. Rebeccah, good to see you. The woman who actually won the last election in a landslide is ready to assume power in that country. Do you think that's going to happen in the near future?
I'm skeptical. It's going to be very difficult. I mean, Maduro is surrounded by other military henchmen, and so it was difficult during Trump 1 when the Trump administration wanted to force Maduro out. If you remember, Rob, back in 2019, the Russians then sent troops in to back up the Maduro regime. So this is going to be very difficult to compel him to leave, but that's why, in my view, there's all of this American combat power in the region to tell Maduro he doesn't have a choice. He's either going to have to step down, or it's going to be, this is going to have to happen the hard way. I suspect also that the military combat power is threatening to target some of the drug activity, the cartel activity in Venezuela, not just necessarily the Maduro regime.
Yeah. It's curious. At some point, do they just say you're going to die or you're going to leave? Which one is it going to be? I want to switch over and talk about the other big war. Axios reporting the U.S. has drafted a new plan to end the Russia-Ukraine war. Grant Russia parts of eastern Ukraine it does not currently control in exchange for a U.S. security guarantee for Ukraine and Europe against future Russian aggression. Does that have teeth? Will that be accepted on both sides?
I don't think so. I'm skeptical about some of this reporting, too. I think this is one of those things we're going to wait and see what actually is confirmed by the administration. Some of this reporting seems to have come from the Russian side. I mean, there's going to be no peace that's lasting if the deal forces Ukraine to disarm, and if there isn't European security forces, which is what President Trump wanted when all those Europeans came to the White House and we had this great progress for the Europeans taking ownership of the security there. So, and also Ukraine can't be forced to hand over any territory that the Russians haven't currently conquered. And that's a lot of the Donetsk, because that just means the Russians are going to regroup and then run through Europe or run through Ukraine in the next couple of years. So I'm pretty skeptical about some of these details. But clearly President Trump is trying to see if he can regroup and try to find some progress to end the war.
Figure out a way to do it. There's all this controversy about the Crown Prince and the visit to the White House yesterday. And, a lot of it based on 9/11, which is very understandable. But also some of it coming from the media. After the Crown Prince had ordered the killing of that Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi, a big story years ago. The media is using this to take away from what Trump is trying to do here, which is solve the Middle East puzzle, which is a huge puzzle that some think is unsolvable. And it's a lot bigger than Jamal Khashoggi. What are your thoughts on that?
Great question. So obviously any extrajudicial killing is terrible. We condemn it as Americans. It's awful. But also the media has tried to make Khashoggi this sort of representative, a stand-in for democracy and journalism. But the truth of the matter is he was funded by the Qatar government. Some of the pieces he wrote for the Post didn't know it at the time, but found out that many of the drafts were funded by the Qatari government. He was also not supportive of MBS, the Crown Prince, not because he was for increasing progressive changes, liberation for women, et cetera. It's because he wanted Islamist rule to come back to Saudi Arabia. And he opposed MBS's liberation of women, et cetera. So this is not, it's a terrible thing that happened to him. It's certainly not the worst thing that the kingdom does. And our strategic partnership with Saudi Arabia will be good for the region, counterterrorism, counter Iran. And we want to make sure, Rob, that the Saudis cooperate with us, especially on AI, and that they don't cooperate with the Chinese.
Yeah, that's great context on Khashoggi, because if you watch that story, which has kind of been re-earthed or whatever, however you would say that in recent days, an old story they brought back up. They make him sound like he's this, Western journalist hero that was standing up to MBS. That's not the story at all.
No, Rob, he lamented when American Special Forces killed Osama bin Laden. Khashoggi lamented the death of Osama bin Laden. So this was not a paragon of democracy and journalism.
Bad dude. And we've got the guy that actually killed Osama bin Laden coming up next year on the show. Rebeccah Heinrichs, good to see you. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Rob.
Desperate for a new way to hit Trump, Democrats decide to call for a coup? I couldn't believe this.
Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
Rob O'Neill on that next.
Hey, I'm Mike Hammond from Signal Relief. You know the holidays are meant to be about family, laughter, and taking things slow. But when you're in pain, it's hard to enjoy any of it. I know because my back has made life difficult for me. But that's why I love the Signal Relief Patch. It helped me enjoy the holidays again. It helped me enjoy my family again. I've given this patch as a gift to friends, family, and even strangers in pain because I know it works. In a recent study, over 85% of people felt relief. It really doesn't matter where you hurt because the patch works, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. For a limited time, we're bringing back our largest discount ever, 50% off. So get a Signal Relief Patch today. Trust me when I tell you, the patch works.
It's the Stackable Savings Sale at Cabinets to Go. Discover quality cabinets, countertops, accessories, and more. Plus, watch as your dream kitchen comes to life with a free 3D design. Don't wait, the Stackable Savings Sale ends soon. Cabinets to Go, designed to wow.
The poverty is unimaginable. There are people who are struggling.
This is where she washes the dishes.
If you're ever going to allow your Christian faith to rise and to do something for God's chosen people, now is the time.
This is the home of Galina. She's 96 years old.
This is what she had to eat for today.
She has one pot with water and wheat.
My father was killed by the Nazis, and I was an orphan. I didn't know about God. But now, in the cold, hungry nights, I pray for food to the God I've never known. There are good people that love you.
You see the tears. Scripture says joy can come in the morning, and you can be the reason.
Right now in Ukraine, elderly Jews are trapped in unbearable poverty. If you will bless these hurting children of Israel, you will receive God's blessing in return. Your urgent gift today of $25 will help rush a survival food box filled with life-saving essentials. Call, scan, or go online now.
I'm not exaggerating when I tell you, I don't know how much longer she could have waited for us to come.
I can't even grow my food anymore. What will happen to me? I'm doomed to starve.
Tens of thousands of elderly Holocaust survivors in the former Soviet Union are living in extreme poverty, hungry, and forgotten. But through the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, we can bring them hope.
It's my favorite food. May you be blessed.
You say to them, we see you and we're here to help.
Please don't delay. Call, scan, or go online now.
It was a video that I'll admit I thought was AI when I first saw it. Lawmakers, including two senators, Elissa Slotkin, Mark Kelly, telling active duty military and intelligence officials that they are obligated to refuse illegal orders from the Trump administration.
I'm Senator Elissa Slotkin.
Senator Mark Kelly.
Representative Chris Deluzio.
Congresswoman Maggie Goodlander.
Representative Chrissy Houlihan.
Congressman Jason Crow.
I was a captain in the United States Navy.
Former CIA officer.
Former Navy.
Former paratrooper and Army Ranger.
Former intelligence officer.
Former Air Force.
We want to speak directly to members of the military
and the intelligence community
who take risks each day
to keep Americans safe.
We know you are under enormous stress and pressure right now.
Americans trust their military.
But that trust is at risk.
This administration is pitting our uniformed military
and intelligence community professionals
against American citizens.
Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
One of the Democrats in that video, Congressman Jason Crow, doubling down on X, responding to Stephen Miller from the White House. The president is trampling the Constitution. Stop politicizing our troops. Stop illegal military strikes. Stop pitting our service members against the American people. Rob O'Neill is a former Navy SEAL and joins us now to talk about this. It's unbelievable the lengths that they'll go to try and stir up some kind of chaotic controversy in this administration, but that's really bad what they just did.
Thanks for having me, Rob. Yeah, this is really bad. I mean, this is one of the parts of what they call a color revolution, which is crazy because it's pretty much invented by our CIA. And one part of it, one of the few parts is you get into the hierarchy, if you will, the military, the intelligence, and then you try to inspire a coup or an insurrection, that they love to say. And it's so dangerous right now with the CIA. I mean, I wasn't a part of that, but I know even the clandestine services that they are trying to corrupt. They can't even legally operate in the United States. And then with the military, which I am very familiar with, the Uniform Code of Military Justice says that every order is lawful until proven otherwise. So, I mean, my recommendation, I know I have a lot of active service members following me. If you decide an order is illegal, you better make damn sure it is, because when it comes down to it, if they come back at you, those politicians you just saw on TV will not be there to defend you. I can assure you that.
They certainly won't. And what they're telling people really is that they're telling troops to refuse to listen to the president if it's a command that they don't like politically, is what it really is. I mean, the one was insinuating the strikes on the boats. You know, I don't know. I mean, that's something they politically don't like. But those are drug boats bringing a deadly narcotic into our country that kills a lot of people.
Of course, and I mean, if you think our intelligence services weren't targeting them before they became terrorist organizations, you're wrong. They have all these intel packages, and our targeters and the fine part of this government have been chomping at the bit to launch these missiles. They're doing it right, and it's a terrorist organization. I mean, if you think about it, right now, elected officials in the Democratic Party are calling for a coup. They're on the side of terrorists. I mean, you're not even making this up. That's two things they're doing. They're calling for an insurrection. These are designated terrorists, and they are defending him when they're not having margaritas with them, which they've also done.
Terrorists, criminals, illegal aliens, these are the people these are their primary concerns. They care far more about them than regular Americans, than victims, than people that die of drug overdoses. I mean, it's a wild world we live in, and then they just made it worse. And I mean, I'm looking at Mark Kelly thinking, you were the normal guy. You're like the one normal guy in the Senate, I thought. And
he was,
him
but
into it.
when you get... Yeah, that's when you get to a certain level of who's funding his campaign. Start following the money, why he shifted like that. I'm dead serious. Yeah. Who's got an interest in us not targeting the drug cartels? And keep in mind, those boats run their way all the way up to Chicago, where there's also a lot of corruption. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes this administration knows about. They're targeting it. They're saving American lives, period.
It's good stuff. Rob O'Neill, good to see you. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Rob.
Democrat Congresswoman, well, let me just start off here. This is breaking news, and it's quite a story here. Democrat Congresswoman Sheila Sherphyllis McCormick of the state of Florida, federally indicted tonight. This woman is a U.S. Congresswoman from the Fort Lauderdale area of South Florida, Broward County. She is accused of stealing $5 million in FEMA funds and using that money to aid her 2021 congressional campaign. $5 million. Funneling the money through multiple accounts to disguise its source. That's an old Biden move. She faces up to 53 years in prison if convicted. A young congresswoman from South Florida, Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, charged with stealing $5 million in FEMA funds. That is a big one. We'll follow it, of course. The wacky blue state looking for leniency for child sex offenders is next in News from the Left.
I lost 110 pounds. You couldn't tell at all because of my excess skin. Sono Bello changed that in one visit.
Introducing the new Lift EX, the just one visit, total body transformation everyone is talking about.
I am super happy with my results.
I decided to give Sono Bello a try. Look at me, I have a silhouette. You can see my waist.
Lift EX is Sono Bello's breakthrough 360-degree body lift alternative. Our body contouring experts sculpt, tighten, and lift your stomach, waist, thighs, and backside, all in just one visit with less downtime.
Sono Bello targeted the areas diet exercise could not do. I found me again.
Sono Bello has over 50,000 five-star reviews, and Lift EX is exclusively available at Sono Bello, America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist. Book your free, personalized consultation today. Easy monthly plans make your best body more affordable than ever.
This year is my year thanks to Sono Bello.
Call Sono Bello for your free consultation today.
A peace plan for Gaza. For the plan to advance, Hamas must disarm. Instead,
tonight, terrifying images emerging from Gaza. Videos show Hamas-linked gunmen carrying out a public execution as they return to the streets.
Hamas on a rampage, executing Palestinians, bloody crackdown, spreading terror. For freedom, not terror, Hamas must go.
You've put up with your old shower for too long. It's outdated, unsafe, and it's time to replace it. But why struggle with a lengthy shower remodel when Jacuzzi can do it in just one day? And there's no need to break a sweat or your budget.
For a limited time, get free fixtures and a free shower door, plus 0 interest and 0 payments for up to 1 year.
So you can finally convert your old bath to a safer, easy entry shower, complete with a custom seat, grab bars, and slip-resistant floor installed in 1 day.
My overall experience with Jacuzzi has been wonderful. Everything was customized to the way I wanted it for the price that I wanted to pay.
I've had a great experience from start to finish.
Don't take matters into your own hands. Do it the smart way. Give Jacuzzi Bath Remodel a call.
Call or go online now to jacuzzibathremodel.com. For the first time ever, we're offering free fixtures and a free shower door, plus 0 interest and 0 payments for up to 1 year.
Call 800-201-9527, 800-201-9527. Call now.
Start your journey with Balance of Nature supplements. Get 35% off your first preferred set by using discount code Newsmax.
Time now for news from the left. Friend of the show, Jason Rantz, exposing the Washington State Sentencing Guidelines Commission in the Pacific Northwest for pushing softer penalties for adults caught in sex crime operations. From Rantz's op-ed, the commission voted 7-2 to urge lawmakers to create alternatives to incarceration for so-called offenses with no identifiable victim. The move was part of a strategic goal of Democrats to destigmatize child sex perverts as part of their far-left criminal justice reform. So if they catch people before they can sexually abuse a little kid, they're trying to just not punish them at all. That's the state of Washington for you. Next up, Jasmine Crockett accusing our EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin of getting funded by Jeffrey Epstein. Take a listen to this, if you can.
Folks who also took money from somebody named Jeffrey Epstein, as I had my team dig in very quickly. Mitt Romney, the NRCC, Lee Zeldin, George Bush, Win Red, McCain Palin, Rick Lazio. I just want to be clear. If this is the standard that we're going to make, just know we're going to expose it all.
It's a private school educated rich girl that talks with the ghetto accent because it's all just theater for her. But let's go through it here because Zeldin responded back to her on X saying, yes, Crockett, a physician named Dr. Jeffrey Epstein, who is a totally different person than the other Jeffrey Epstein, donated to a prior campaign of mine. No relation. No frickin' relation, you genius. We did some digging, and it's true, and records show that all the Jeffrey Epsteins that donated to all those Republicans she mentioned, none of them were the Epstein that actually is in question here. And the one that donated to Zeldin, by the way, did so in April and August of 2020. That was after Epstein killed himself. So Jasmine Crockett proving not only is she a fool, everyone on her staff is also a moron as well. Next up. This is a good one here. Rapper Nicki Minaj appearing at the UN, thanking the president for combating the killing of Christians in Nigeria. Take a listen.
I would like to thank President Trump for prioritizing this issue and for his leadership on the global stage in calling for urgent action to defend Christians in Nigeria, to combat extremism, and to bring a stop to violence against those who simply want to exercise their natural right to freedom of religion or belief.
There you go right there. Now, you don't really see that very often because it's not really woke to care about Christians, even African Christians. You're supposed to care about Africans, but not Christians, obviously. And finally, Seattle's new socialist mayor, Katie Wilson, we've talked about her, tweeting out that after much deliberation, she's accepted the job, being kind of sarcastic about being the next mayor of the city, saying that she's not going to need any more financial support from her parents to cover the high costs of childcare going forward. Now at 43, she's finally gotten into the money, right? By destroying capitalism, she's managed to find some. We find this very often. People that are terrible in the private sector run to government so that they can try to destroy it for everybody else. That's Katie Wilson. Interesting moment from the Pope on immigration. That's up next.
Guys, it's time to get what you want. With help from Ageless Male Max, A doctor-recommended solution for boosting testosterone right at its source. Be the man you want to be.
People always ask, why Patriot Gold Group? With over 10,000 clients to date and over $1 billion in transactions, not a single complaint on the Better Business Bureau. Consumer Affairs top rated for 9 years in a row. Over 2,000 5-star reviews. The only company nationwide where you, the client, work directly with an owner. Home of the no fee for life IRA. Gold is up 80% in the last 28 months, 275% since Lehman Brothers collapsed. We are patriots protecting patriots. Give Patriot Gold Group a call at 888-528-4290 before it's too late. Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold and silver dealer 9 years in a row. Call now, 888-528-4290.
Meet Andrew from the Zebra. Andrew lives and breathes insurance. Andrew stays up all night watching the Zebra find people's savings. You might think nobody could love insurance as much as Andrew, but at the Zebra, everybody's really into savings. The Zebra monitors your insurance and informs you of savings the moment we find it, so you never have to second-guess your policy or your price. Nobody does insurance like the Zebra. Find out how much you can save today.
Your bathtub is a problem. It's outdated and unsafe. The solution, a stunning new shower from Jacuzzi Bath Remodel, installed in as little as 1 day.
For the first time ever, we're offering free fixtures and a free shower door with no interest and no payments for up to a year.
Jacuzzi offers so many modern styles with luxurious features like soft close doors. Jacuzzi delivers style and safety. Upgrade to an easy entry shower with a custom seat and durable grab shelves. Jacuzzi has been a trusted name for over 70 years, and that means quality. It is beautiful. You deserve a bathroom that's beautiful and safe, so don't wait. Call right now.
Call or go online now to jacuzzibathremodel.com. For a limited time, get free fixtures and a free shower door, plus 0 interest and 0 payments for up to 1 year.
Call 800-202-8011. That's 800-202-8011. Call now.
At Pure Talk, life is simple, and so are the deals. For instance, an unlimited wireless plan means unlimited savings for life. Not for the life of your phone, for your life. Unlimited talk, text, and data on a crazy fast 5G network for $29.95 a month for the rest of your life. Honestly, there's never been another deal like it. In fact, you might say it's the deal of your lifetime. Pure Talk, everything you need, nothing you don't.
Afraid your roof won't make it through the winter? Roofmax can tune up and restore your roof for a fraction of the cost of a replacement. Call now, and the tune-up portion is free with your Roofmax treatment.
All right, finally tonight, the Pope with an interesting take on immigration, still on the left a bit, but more moderate than the woke Pope that he replaced.
I think we have to look for ways of treating people humanely. No one has said that the United States should have open borders. I think every country has a right to determine who and how and when people enter. But when people are living good lives, and many of them for 10, 15, 20 years, to treat them in a way that is extremely disrespectful, to say the least.
Finnerty, that sounded like the Pope saying that the United States should not have open borders. We should be able to determine who lives here. And if you've been here less than 10 years, like all the millions that came in under Biden, you can go home.
Look, I am all for this. Don't forget, he probably seen what's going on in his hometown of Chicago, which is an abject disaster. And maybe he's reacting to that. By the way, he's got a little bit of an accent. He's from Chicago. So I don't really understand that.
And his brother is a Newsmax fan.
His brother watched Newsmax when his other brother, the Pope, became Pope. How about that? I had him on the show. All right.
I remember that.
Good to see you, Rob.
Good to see you.